Welcome to the Migrant Resource Centre, Northwest Region Incorporated Diversity and Disability YouTube channel. Your Life, Your Voice program, where self-advocates and professionals in the disability sector are interviewed.
The Diversity and Disability Project would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we work and live and recognise their continued connection to land, water and community. We pay respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Nothing about us without us. We pay respects to all self-advocates who have worked hard over the years and still working tirelessly for their rights, supporting others with disabilities and human rights for all.
This channel is for people with disabilities who aspire to seek self-advocacy role models to inspire change in their everyday lives. Nothing about us without us. Choice and control are central themes. Every interview is as unique as you and I.
And it has a fundamental universal human rights ethos of respect for persons with disabilities, having their views heard and acknowledged. After all, it's all in the name. Your life, your voice.
Be the voice of change in your life.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Your Life, Your Voice. My name is Julie Skimeris and I'd like to welcome my co-host, Anthony Rocco. Welcome, Anthony. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you, Julie. How are you?
Good, thank you. I trust you enjoyed your first session last fortnight.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great.
We received some very, very positive feedback. And if anyone has any feedback or would like to see things on this channel, just email us on yourlifeyourvoice@gmail.com. So today we have an episode on self-advocacy, because the Your Life, Your program and the program run by Diversity and Disability, its main focus is self-advocacy. So today that'll be our topic. So Anthony, would you like to have a chat about self-advocacy?
Yeah, so I think self-advocacy is a great topic to talk about today. And I guess we could start off by sort of, letting everybody know like what we see is, or what we think self-advocacy is. And for me, self-advocacy is simply, can simply be when you speak up for yourself and let others know, what your needs are. It's about being brave and communicating what you think is important. It helps you make choices and, helps you take charge of your life. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Julie?
I would like to add something. So self-advocacy may seem like a solo type of thing that you do for yourself, and it is, but it has much wider ramifications, because when we are making changes for ourselves, not everyone has the courage to speak up or have the skills that others may have. We are making life and systems better for the wider community. So that's why I really love self-advocacy and going out into the community, which DD do, and teaching people skills on self-advocacy. So it's a passion of ours, we must not forget there have been a lot of self-advocates who have paved the way for us and others, who have made things better, and some of them have passed into the next life. And so I'd like to acknowledge all self-advocates from the past and present working really hard to make life better for the wider community.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a great point. So I have a 6-step, like 6 steps to how to, become effective in self-advocacy. So I'd like to go through those 6 steps. And if you have any comments, Julie, please just jump in throughout everything. So I'll go through the first step. So the first step is identify. So that's basically where you identify what's important to you, and what your needs are. Understand what your strengths and goals are. And step number 2 is to choose. So you can choose the right person or, organization or community group that might be best suited to help you. The right person should have the relevant knowledge and skills to be able to support you. Number 3, have confidence. Don't be afraid to ask. Sometimes it's difficult, to, sometimes you might feel a little vulnerable and it's difficult to ask for, support and things. So, it's important to try and to practice sort of asking for support. And I think it's also important to sort of sometimes not let our pride sort of get in the way of, asking for things that, we need, and to remember that, these things are important for our growth in our life to, ensure we get the right supports. Number 4 is to speak up. So, John, this one is just basically clearly expressing your thoughts and opinions, and try to make sure people are understand what you're needing, and maybe sort of may have to be a little assertive at times. So number 5 would be persist and adapt. So you'd be persistent in achieving your goals, even if you, experience setbacks or challenges. Those things, life is life, things like that are going to happen. But if we stay persistent, then, there's more likelihood that we'll achieve what we're, our desired outcome. So with adapting, if, trying different methods, if one method doesn't work, then try different strategies. Okay, and 6 is evaluate and reflect. Sort of assess what your progress and your outcomes have been like. Learn from what worked and what could be improved. So, and basically just learn from your experiences and take those experiences to enhance your future, advocacy goals. So that's all I have for that at the moment. Is there anything you wanted to add, Julie?
I do want to add a few things. So diversity disabilities main focus are for people that don't speak English. So some people may have barriers to achieving that's a great definitions, Anthony, and it's great definitions, great reflections, for people to think about. But also, I'd like to make people aware that what if there are barriers to these goals? And barriers are just opportunities, really, of maybe creative ways of dealing with issues. So one way we can deal with a barrier is to have an advocate, an individual advocate. So I actually run a parent with children with disabilities group, and it's mainly Vietnamese parents, and they come monthly for information sessions, and then alongside that we have an individual advocate also. So it's basically casework, so she can work one-on-one with people, because unfortunately there are still quite a lot of judgments about people from the cold that don't speak English, and people with disabilities. And so like Anthony quite rightly said, don't be afraid to push boundaries and ask for help, because these services are there to support you. So that's one point. Also, everyone can benefit from skills development. It doesn't matter if you're nonverbal to reaching very high levels of education, skills development is always a good thing to look at, and you can sort of work out where you're at with skills with maybe a family member. It doesn't have to be professional. You discuss things with friends, see what you're good at, see the gaps in your knowledge, and so skill development. I really highly recommend people to get involved with skill development. There's an organisation named SARU, and I speak about SARU a lot in these episodes. SARU is a self-advocacy resource unit, and SARU has an online website called Voices Together, but also it has a list of self-advocacy groups in every state and territory of Australia. And as one of my colleagues mentioned, clearly very experienced self-advocate, is that you have to. It's a good idea to find your tribe, and sometimes it could mean being around other people with the same disability, but it doesn't have to be solely that. So I suppose finding your tribe is finding people you're comfortable with, finding people that you can learn from, which is what I like to do. So comfortable learning from, you can bounce things off each other. You're not bashful talking about different topics with these people, because after all, we're all human, and we all have different needs, and sometimes it could be rather private needs, and I know people with disabilities and the actual general population, don't think that people with disabilities have very private needs. So that's another barrier we may have to we do challenge because I myself, along with two other ladies, organised a while ago with Scope, a sexuality and spirituality group. And we talked about these issues. And the ladies came a long way in understanding things and, perhaps taking some actions that they may not have been aware of. So I was really blessed to work with a sexologist at that time, and also a very experienced advocate. So that was a good learning platform for myself. And see, to me, my life has always been about skills development. And so with Saru, they provide easy English resources. They're a very good organisation to connect with if you want online information, if you want to join a group. Any other comments, Anthony?
I think you covered some great points there. Yeah, definitely, build that network of allies, whether it be, supportive friends and family members, the, many organizations out there that can support community groups and things like that. And yeah, definitely, build your skills and knowledge around things. It's important to know also what your rights are. Sometimes we may not know what our rights are, and if we're equipped with that knowledge, then we can empower ourselves with that and advocate for ourselves with more confidence, I think.
Well, one of my first experiences with self-advocacy groups is the first group I ran with D&D. And I won't say the organisation, but it was really interesting because, the ladies were verbal, and the whole idea was to teach some skills around self-advocacy. And they came a long way. In 1 year, they came a long way. So the whole idea of groups in general is to basically empower and resource people. And the people that we were resourcing were also workers. We had quite a reluctant worker, support worker. And look, that's not a reflection of the person in general. The person, is on the whole a kind person, but people don't want to be patronised. And so we worked really hard with the worker and the clients together. And the good thing with that was that we had the support of the team leader and the head of the organisation. And so we finished the year, and the year after I accidentally met someone at a conference, and I was pleased to hear that the worker has adapted some of our techniques. So that's one of my greatest success stories. Because the clients were treated better, and were treated with respect and dignity, and had choice and control over their lives.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's very satisfying with that outcome. But that happened quite a long time ago. So yeah. Anyway, so do we want to move on, Anthony?
Yes.
Okay, so we thought we'll show a few videos based on self-advocacy. Would you like to introduce the first video, Anthony?
So the first video was this is from Jordan Steele John, who is a senator in the Australian Parliament. This video, which video was this one again? Sorry, Julie.
The first one that you sent me was around his accessibility issues.
I guess there's, yeah, I think this one was around the accessibility issues in Parliament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how about we show the video, then we can have a discussion.
Sounds good.
It was a overwhelming experience, as you can imagine. Arriving in Parliament for your first day on the job is a big enough thing in itself, but it very rapidly became clear that, you know, this building was built in 1988 and as such has not kept up with the times as it comes to accessibility. The toilets in my office weren't accessible, many of the courtyards are blocked by steppages, there wasn't, you know, proper rampways and things in the chamber, and the procedural and process side of the Senate in terms of the kind of funnily named standing orders and what that requires you to do in terms of mobility to get the call, relinquish the call, make yourself heard. So that very quickly became clear to me that we were a bit behind the times. We've managed to make some modifications to the chamber just so I could get to and use a desk, which was wonderfully undertaken in a couple of days by the carpentry department here. But more broadly, you know, at the moment when we go into a division, I have to kind of sit at the back, away from my colleagues.
Please recite the affirmation on the card handed to you.
If there's somebody new sworn in, the tradition is to go onto the floor and shake their hand, and I can't really do that because I can't get down the steps. If there is a moment of condolence, we're all asked to rise in our places. We've had 2 Australians elected with physical disabilities, myself and Graham Edwards. We've had no terrorist incidents in Australia, and yet we're investing billions of dollars to modify Parliament to keep the wrong people out. And we're yet to see how much we'll be investing to enable the right people to get in. Traditionally, a senator would stand to take the call and sit to signify that they had released the call, and I tried to a couple of times to moderate the pace of my speech, and the president at the time thought I had concluded and moved on to a colleague. So I don't know whether they were trying to send me a subtle message there, and I'm in conversations at the moment to make sure that a specially made bench will be added at some point next to myself. And that we can do something around divisions and things so I can stay within the chamber's seating circle. I think we really need to make sure and value the symbolism of these things. You know, if somebody is physically excluded from a space and that is visually seen to be the case, then that sends a strong message about the role of that person within that institution. So we do need to address those things urgently. A needle in a haystack. I spent about 6 or 7 hours on the phone trying to find an accessible piece of accommodation when I first arrived. I have not been able to find one. I was lucky enough to find a venue that would be willing to make some modifications in their own expense and dramatically lower the price so that the cost of accommodation would be covered by my allowances. If I had a different kind of impairment or higher or more complex support needs, I wouldn't be able to have made do in the way that I've just been able to do for these last 4 months while they've been retrofitting my office, and therefore I wouldn't have been able to speak or work on behalf of my constituents in WA. And a building which places that kind of constraint on people literally locks people out of the process for months and months at a time should they be elected is simply unacceptable in modern Australia.
Thank you. We're back. So anyway, do you have any comments about that video that we saw about the highest institution in our land locking people out?
Yeah, well, I think it's you know, when you know, a place, you know, like you're saying, you know, it's basically where all the decisions get made, the Parliament office, and seeing how inaccessible it is, you know, is very telling, and sort of shows, you know, what a lot needs to be done. And you know, it's great that Senator Jordan is, you know, really addressing these things. And I'm also sort of thinking about, like, you know, those are the sort of barriers that are in place where, for somebody that potentially, you know, it doesn't even have to be Parliament. It could be, you know, a certain workplace that somebody might want to be employed at or something. And if they see that it's not accessible, then, you know, it's just another opportunity that people, they feel that, you know, they can't take advantage, you know, go for. And I think there's so many of those situations that, you know, self-advocacy and advocates and activism can, you know, make positive changes towards.
You may or may not know this, Anthony, but our manager, Christian historian, who has a pretty physically disabling disability in cerebral palsy, ran for, as I think it was in the Greens a party quite a while ago. And yes, so Christian has lots of experience in self-advocacy, and I think that the greatest minds, whatever their physical ability is, they should have the same expectations of being able to participate in any and every level of society. I think there's a lot before. Not I think, I know there's a lot more work to be done in this space. Yes, so and it's great that at least two people with disabilities are in our parliament, and that we talk a lot about representation of women in higher levels of governance than parliament and in organisations, and I think that there are parallels in that. So in that, you know, I really truly believe that the best minds should be in organisations and making decisions. It should, well, in my view, you know, the best minds. So whether that's whatever gender you identify, and there's a diversity of gender representations now in society. Well, in my view, the best minds should be making decisions for their constituents and other members of people with disabilities, and for general society. When we talk a lot about universal accessibility, and you know, there is movements to universal accessibility. I often talk about from birth to death, you know, and basically, if by the grace of God, you know, we either do have or don't have, you know, and you know, disability can affect everyone at some stage of their life. And yes, so I really do believe in universal access would actually go a long way to reducing these barriers in society.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Do you think it's a good idea to show the second video?
Yes.
We need to talk about disability. You might hear people say that disability is caused by barriers in society. But what does that actually mean? Well, think about this. If someone who uses a wheelchair can't get into a building because of some steps, is the barrier caused by the person using a wheelchair or by the design of the building? If a blind person can't read the timetable for a train, what's stopping them from getting the information they need? If a child with learning difficulties is struggling in class, is it the child's responsibility to learn in the way they are taught, or the teacher's responsibility to teach in the way that the child can understand? For years, society has viewed disability as a problem that belongs to the disabled person and said that we should focus on fixing that person's impairment.
The social model of disability says that disability results from the way society is organised, rather than by a person's impairment or difference.
There is no right or wrong way to be. We are all different. We are all unique, diverse individuals.
We need to remove the barriers that stop disabled people from participating in society fully, on an equal basis with everyone else. We need to design buildings so that everyone can access them.
We need to ensure information is accessible to everyone so we can all participate in public life.
And we need to ensure that every child has the opportunity to learn and grow into the best person they can be.
When barriers are removed, disabled people can and will be equal in society,
with control over their own lives.
Not to mention all the other groups who benefit from a more inclusive and accessible society.
It's time to talk about disability differently. It's time to build our places and spaces differently. It's time to change attitudes and realise that we are all different and unique, and that an inclusive society is a better society for everyone. Authorised by Jordan Steele-John, the Australian Greens, Parliament House.
We're back. So, skills development, they get better over time.
Yeah,
So Anthony, what a great couple of videos Anthony has researched, and well done, Anthony. I really like them.
Yeah, well, they sort of show, advocacy and self-advocacy is, finding the barriers that, we come across and, speaking up and, basically saying, hey, the changes need to be done here. Then that video is sort of outlining the the social model of disability and as opposed to the medical model that tells us that we're not disabled by our disability, we're disabled by the barriers that are in place in society.
Barriers, and I'd like to include attitudes also.
Yes.
Reinforce ableism and all the nasty things about ableism. And I really like the actual cartoon approach also, because it's just another form of communication. And someone may not relate to the dry, video of people speaking, and it's another way to communicate the information. And I think I know that from my time in education, which was a long time ago, things have changed because there's a recognition of, learning while teaching has to be has to be reviewed, and I know teachers do a lot of professional development type things, and disability is more recognised now. Certain disabilities, dyslexia wasn't really recognised when I was in school, and lots of different other learning disabilities. That's what I'm thinking of. I can't think of it at the moment. If you're on the spectrum, and the thing is, people can and do learn in different methods of modes. So whether it's verbal, whether it's a combination of written and verbal, easy English. So yes, I would encourage people to explore the different ways that you can learn and improve your life.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other comments, Anthony?
Yeah, with self-advocacy, I feel, a lot of times, like for example, myself, like if I experience any sort of barriers, I self-advocate for myself, and asking for support in different areas, and because it's it may seem like I'm just self-advocating for myself, which I am, but it also tends to make changes. So, like for example, like if I need a certain document in a accessible format for myself for at university, then because I need that, then other people in my situation would need that as well. And then it's, you're self-advocating and advocating for others at the same time. So, it's got a knock-on effect, if that's the right word. Yeah.
Knock-on effect, absolutely. So I'm going to put you on the spot, and if you can't answer the question, that's fine. So I know that you finished. Is it a TAFE degree in community development?
Yeah, community services.
Community services. So while you were at the institution, and we don't have to mention the institution, did you experience barriers? And if so, did you ask for help?
Yes, I guess the barriers I had for my situation were mainly mobility, and in terms of navigation, like to be able to navigate around the campus and to know where my class is. So with my, being legally blind, I'm not able to sort of see different signs and say, hey, that's building 3, and then go there and sort of, I need to find where classroom number such and such is. So for me, I understand that's something I need to figure out, and whether it be asking for support from the university or use the supports I already have, which is using an organization that I've been using as Guide Dogs Victoria, which has orientation and mobility instructors that can come out and help me navigate around. So, those are sort of barriers that I'm actually working with the university at the moment to try and implement some assistive technology that would greatly help with others in my situation who have low vision or blindness, that would help them drastically be able to navigate the campus a lot more or easier. So I'm hoping to sort of move forward with that in the next couple of weeks, which I'm excited about. And I'm hoping that, you know, other universities, you know, catch on and sort of do the same. So I'm hoping, you know, it's another knock-on effect.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So you're basically creating a model for this university and other universities. And, you know, it only takes one person, you know, and, you know, I'm very spiritual, and I really believe it only takes one person to change the world or to make life better for others. And let that be you. Whoever's watching, let that be you. And you don't have to be like a mastermind, or, you know, I'm very geographically challenged, and, you know, have terrible difficulty with that side of life. But you know, with GPSs nowadays, you know, the problem is reduced, markedly reduced. Yes, so that's my take-home message for our viewers out there. Be the voice of change, not only in your life, but in others' lives. So, Anthony, any other comments?
No, not at the moment.
So do you think, I think it might be a good idea at this stage to show the Stella Young video, because Stella Young is was a great advocate who really highlights lots of issues around disability. She was a comedian. She was a teacher. She's a person of great humour. Great humour for a great purpose. Unfortunately, Stella passed away a few years ago now, but her legacy lives on. And if people out there want to Google Stella Young, there are lots of YouTube videos out there. And yeah, so I encourage people to Google Stella Young and hear about her and her life. I'll put the details in our chat, on the YouTube chat section. So without further ado, let's go to Stella Young.
Stella Young, a young woman with short hair, big sunglasses, a black dress and stockings, cruises down a city footpath in a wheelchair and enters a clothes store.
I think there's an underlying assumption that, you know, people who use wheelchairs, of course, wouldn't be interested in fashion, which is absolutely not true.
I really like to look my best, and just because I have a disability doesn't mean it should be any different.
Well, this place actually used to be a bookshop, and when it was a bookshop, it was over 2 levels, both of which were independently accessible. So you could access one level from inside the jam factory and one level from the street. But when it became a top shop, which I was really excited about because the UK brands that we haven't had access to here, they renovated it to put it over 3 levels. The middle level was not independently accessible at all, so it completely ruined the access of the whole shop. They had this little lift between those 3 levels, and the manager said, well, there's a key somewhere for that lift. Not quite sure where it is, but let me go and check. He came back with this enormous ring of keys and kept trying them all, not able to find the key for these lifts. So it was completely useless having them if people can't actually use them, if no one knows where this key is. And everybody was very nice. The store manager offered to lift my chair, and I said, I doubt you get paid enough in fashion retail to break your back lifting me into a shop. And you know, I really like clothes, but no outfit yet has been worth my dignity and being carried into a store. So yeah, I left a very unsatisfied customer.
Text Madeline Sob.
I was shopping for a dress to wear for a friend's birthday party, and I wanted to try on a dress, but I couldn't access the fitting rooms. The ideal thing is for me to be able to purchase clothing and take it home and try it on and take it back in a couple of days if I don't like it or if it doesn't fit. I asked if I could take the clothes home. The sales assistant just didn't get it and just kept saying no, flat out no. I felt quite annoyed, and I made a complaint to the Australian Human Rights Commission, and I wanted to use the legislation to get something done about it.
I actually decided that the best way to tackle this was actually through Twitter. There's nothing like some bad press to get people to act. So I tweeted that I found it very disappointing that Topshop couldn't provide access. And they saw my tweet and got straight back to me and said, can we please have your email address? We'd like to talk to you about what happened. So I emailed them some details of what had taken place, that I found it very disappointing that not only had they renovated the shop to make it so that it was not independently accessible, but no one actually knew how to use the assisted access that was in place.
The Human Rights Commission contacted me and wrote a letter to the owners of the shop and said that they that I had put a complaint in and they had to do something about it, basically.
Text, unlike Madeline's retailer, Globalize have a great attitude and were happy to support this film.
We try to have one big fitting room in all of our Globalize stores. If for some reason that is not big enough, we have the policy where you can try clothes on at home and then bring them back if they don't fit for a full cash refund. So that's a simple way of going about a problem that can be avoided.
So if you have any problems with these at all, just bring them straight back.
There's no need to go fuss about it. You can just purchase the clothes. If they don't fit, you can just bring them straight back.
See you later.
Within a week, I got an email back from them to say that they'd not only changed the settings on the lifts so that you no longer needed a key to operate them, but all of the staff in their store had been given disability awareness training, and they sent me a $100 gift voucher so I could go back and have a much more accessible clothes purchasing experience. I think they handled that situation very well, and I think it's a good outcome for all concerned, and I'll buy their clothes for many years to come because accessible fashion is always good.
In the end, they wrote a letter back to me through the Human Rights Commission saying that they're very sorry that I was inconvenienced and that they would allow people with disabilities to buy clothing from their store and take it back within 2 days.
Look, I think social media is a fantastic tool for social change, and whether it's, tweeting your dissatisfaction about a product or a service or a company, it's public, everyone can see it. I think as soon as people hear the words disability discrimination, they get quite nervous. Not only is it really uncool, but, there are legal ramifications for discriminating against people with disabilities. And I think that it's really important that while we can use social media, we do have legislation that can back us up as well.
Credits Room for a Change. Producer, director Sarah Barton, Grit Media. Camera Rob Murphy. Editor Simon Moole. Online producer, editor Leslie Hahn. Funded by the Australian Communities Foundation. Copyright 2013 Australian Human Rights Commission. We would like to acknowledge the financial support of the Australian Government Department of Families, Housing, Community Services and Indigenous Affairs, Media Access Australia, The Substation.
So, Anthony, another great YouTube clip from Stella Young. Yes, we heard two different scenarios from two different companies and two great outcomes. Like Stella so rightly said, social media can be used for a platform for change. And then there are also legal avenues like the Human Rights Commission, which is and there's legislation to back us up. So yeah, would you like to comment at all, Anthony?
Yeah, so yeah, I agree that the that video was a good example of self-advocacy and the different ways that they can you're able to self-advocate. It doesn't necessarily have to be confrontational to the for in that example, confronting the person at the store or anything like that. There's avenues through so Stella went through social media and made a complaint through there. Madeline made her complaint through the Royal Human Rights Commission. So there is legislation in place for that. And another point I wanted to touch on, which sort of stood out to me, was with Stella, how she mentioned, her dignity. And I think that's important to, dignity and respect is very important for, people with disabilities, and to nothing is, what do you remember what she said exactly, Julie? I'm trying to remember.
Well, no, she says something like, "No outfit." She likes clothes, but no outfit is worth her dignity or lack of dignity.
Yes, and and that's a great point. And that's exactly right. So I guess it's saying you don't not to give up your dignity and respect for anything. And it's great that changes were made, solutions were implemented, like they were able to take the clothes home and try them on at home and bring them back, and if they didn't fit and things like that, which I think is a good solution. So yeah, they both had great outcomes for for advocating for themselves
and the wider community.
Yes.
So we're coming to the end of our program soon. So I'd like people to take two things, two catchphrases from my study days. Personal is political, and think local, act global, which has been happening in our sector for decades now. So on that note, thank you, Anthony, for a great discussion about self-advocacy. And we'd like to see you, our audience, another 2 weeks. Please leave your comments on the YouTube section.
Yeah, we'd love to hear any ideas on any other topics you would like us to discuss or talk about. And if you want to help us grow this channel, then press the like button, press subscribe, and then press the bell button, and it'll greatly help us to spread the word to others that may need information like this.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Catch us on Your Life, Your Voice YouTube channel, live every Monday fortnight or on demand.
We would like your comments and suggestions on topics that you would like us to explore. Leave your comments on YouTube comments section.
Please feel free to email us on dndyourlifeyourvoice@gmail.com or contact us via the Migrant Resource Centre Northwest Region Inc. Phone number 1300 676 044. 1300 676 044.
Diversity in Disability is a project of the Migrant Resource Centre Northwest Region Incorporated, and would like to thank the management for funding this project, especially living through the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has been difficult for people with disabilities living in isolation.